paradrama tales.
He called me a rat, said I was sneaky, spiteful, wrong, all because I quietly moved back the money. He secretly blew $160,000 on baseball cards, while I was being lectured for buying meal plans. If that sounds backwards to you, trust me, it gets worse. When we first got married, I thought I had landed a thoughtful, financially responsible man. He talked about building wealth, retiring early, investing smart. I was on board every spreadsheet, every tight month, every shared goal. But looking back now, I think I was just following his script. And he had the passwords. At first, I didn't think much of it. He handled the bills, the bank, the budgeting apps. I was busy running our lives, groceries, meal plans, errands, my own work. But whenever I'd ask about our finances, he'd sigh or say something like, "Don't worry about it, I've got it under control." And if I pushed, he'd accuse me of not trusting him. I'd feel guilty. So I backed off. It wasn't like I wasn't contributing. I worked, I cut corners, I skipped the hair salon for months at a time. I even stopped my monthly gym membership because he said it didn't align with our financial goals. Meanwhile, if I dared spend on something for myself, even a modest splurge, I'd get the look, the lecture, the cold shoulder. I thought it was love disguised as discipline. Turns out it was control cloaked in concern. The first red flag came wrapped in a casual car ride. He mentioned the concert tickets I'd bought using his credit card, technically our joint money, and how my friends hadn't paid him back. I offered to chase them down. But then I remembered something. Another massive $4,000 charge had hit our joint account that week. I had asked about it. He said it was groceries. I knew it wasn't. We don't eat caviar. That's when it hit me. I didn't even know how to check. I didn't have the login to our bank. I didn't know his credit card passwords. I'd been locked out of our financial life like a guest in my own marriage. That wasn't love. That was a strategy. And I was done playing blind. So I asked again. And again. And when I finally got access to those statements, my stomach turned. $160,000. Cards, collectibles, nonsense. All while I was being scolded for budgeting a meal delivery subscription. That day I stopped being the obedient wife and started becoming my own advocate. I'll never forget the night I sat cross-legged on the living room floor, his credit card statement spread out like evidence at a crime scene. Month by month, I highlighted each charge, $800 here, $2,500 there, until the numbers blurred and I couldn't tell if I was looking at a spending problem or a betrayal in slow motion. Baseball cards, that's where it all went. He'd call it investing. But let's be real, this wasn't some vintage Babe Ruth auction he casually dabbled in. It was box after box of so-called limited edition packs. Pre-orders, online bids, obscure websites charging thousands for cards I'd never seen, never agreed to, never knew existed. I kept adding, 12 months, then 24, then 36. Over the course of 3 years, he spent $160,000. Not on us, not on our future, but on a fantasy world he never invited me into. And here's the thing, during that same time, he was shaming me for buying groceries that made my life easier. Meal plans so I didn't have to stress after work. A haircut so I could feel human. He'd argue that I didn't understand our goals, that I was being irresponsible, all while he was hemorrhaging money behind my back. He didn't just spend the money, he weaponized the secrecy. He used guilt like a scalpel. Anytime I questioned even a $200 transaction, I became the problem. Why can't you just trust me? This is why we fight. You're so ungrateful. I began to wonder if maybe I was the issue, that maybe I didn't know how to support a husband, but as the truth unfolded, the mask dropped. It wasn't just about cards, it was about power, control, silence. He didn't tell me because deep down he knew I wouldn't agree. So he spun the narrative instead. For 3 years I thought we were building something together, but he was digging a $160,000 hole and burying me in it. That night on the floor, staring at those statements, I cried. Not just for the money, but for every time I apologized when I hadn't done anything wrong, for every dream I put on hold because we couldn't afford it. Now, I know we could have. He just chose not to. You don't always recognize abuse when it's dressed in patience, and I'm just trying to help. That's what makes financial abuse so insidious. It hides under the illusion of love. And for the longest time, I believed him when he said he was just managing things for us. At first, it felt like partnership. He took care of the bills, the budgeting, the accounts. I trusted him because that's what I thought marriage was built on, trust. I didn't have access to the online banking for months, and when I'd ask, he'd brush it off with, "It's just easier if one of us handles it." Or worse, he'd guilt trip me with, "Do you not think I'm doing a good job for us?" And I'd feel ashamed for even asking. But love doesn't isolate. Love doesn't keep secrets. And love doesn't punish you for being curious about your own future. The control grew slowly. I'd get scolded for buying groceries that were too expensive. He once lectured me over a $60 haircut, while he was charging $3,000 a month to a credit card I didn't even know existed. If I questioned him, it became a fight. Not over facts, but over my tone, my timing, my disrespect. He used emotional manipulation as a leash, tightening every time I got too close to the truth. He framed himself as the responsible one, the provider, the grown-up. And me, I was made to feel like a naive little girl who couldn't possibly understand how money worked. But here's the gut punch. Financial abuse doesn't always look like someone cutting up your credit card. Sometimes it looks like someone holding the login passwords hostage. Sometimes it's a man insisting you trust him, then punishing you when you finally ask, "Why don't I see the numbers?" It took me years to realize that I wasn't just being shut out. I was being kept small. I wasn't his partner. I was his audience, applauding the show while he drained the account. And the worst part, for the longest time, I called that love. I thought being provided for meant being cared for. I thought surrendering control meant safety. But I see it clearly now. Control without consent isn't love. It's abuse. And once I called it by its name, I knew I couldn't go back. He met with a divorce lawyer before I even knew we had a crisis. That's the part that still stings. While I was trying to hold us together, navigating trust issues, whispering away doubt late at night, he was planning an exit behind my back. And when I found out, it wasn't because he confessed. It was because I stumbled across a calendar reminder on his tablet labeled consultation. Cold, clinical, like our life together was just an item to check off. I confronted him, hands shaking, voice calm, too calm. I asked if he really wanted out. He didn't deny it, just sat there jaw clenched and finally said, "I just wanted to know my options. No remorse, no apology. Just a quiet, emotionless calculation like I was a spreadsheet he'd run the numbers on and found lacking." But then, just days later, he flipped. Suddenly I was the love of his life again. Suddenly he was the broken one who didn't know how to cope and just wanted to protect us. He begged me to stay. Said we were stronger than one bad decision. Said he'd change. That we'd rebuild. That he was scared not of losing his money, but of losing me. And God help me, part of me wanted to believe him. Because love, real love, isn't a switch you turn off when things get hard. We had history. We had dreams. I didn't want to be the woman who gave up too fast. So I stayed. Not because I was convinced, but because I wasn't ready to give up on the version of him I hoped still existed underneath the lies. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just about one conversation with a lawyer. It was about years of imbalance, about how fast he could weaponize silence, guilt, and charm, about how quickly he'd moved from abandoning me emotionally to begging for connection once he felt control slipping. He didn't want a divorce, not yet, but he wanted to win. And when I didn't cry, when I didn't scream, when I just watched him quietly realizing I saw him clearly for the first time, that's when he got scared. Because he knew the moment I stopped needing him to stay was the moment he truly started losing me. I didn't take the money out of anger. I took it out of survival. After I discovered the $160,000 he'd sunk into baseball cards, yes cards, something inside me broke, but not in the way he expected. I didn't scream. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't even cry. I went quiet. I watched. I planned. Because if I learned anything from this marriage, it's that silence is where power hides. We had a joint account. He used it like his personal war chest, moving money around without question, shaming me for buying meal plans or getting my nails done while he dropped thousands on limited editions and investment pieces. So I decided if I couldn't rewind the damage, I could at least protect what little was left. Every month after the mortgage cleared and the bills were paid, I began transferring money into a personal savings account. $1,000 here, $2,000 there. Never enough to raise alarm. Just quiet withdrawals, surgical, clean. I wasn't spending it, I was reclaiming my half. He didn't notice at first, and when he did, he was livid. He started playing defense, making sure the money wasn't there on transfer days, holding back deposits, micromanaging accounts he never cared about before. 1 month, 2 months, he blocked me, called me sneaky, called me a thief. Thief. After he burned through our finances, lied for years, and shut me out of our accounts. No, I wasn't stealing, I was correcting. Quietly, carefully. With dignity he never showed me. When he realized I wouldn't stop, when I waited him out, then did the transfer. Anyway, he lost it. Called me a rat, said he was going to sell the house, dissolve our business, punish me. I just looked at him. No yelling, no arguing. Because the louder he got, the more I understood he wasn't afraid of the money being gone. He was afraid of no longer having control. That money in my account, it wasn't revenge. It was a boundary. It was a signal to me that I wasn't stuck, that I still had agency. That while he was buying cardboard fantasies, I was quietly investing in something real, a way out, a way forward, a version of myself who would never ask permission to be protected again. It started with silence. Again. After I made that last transfer, the one he tried to stop, he shut down. Not the screaming rage this time, not the guilt trips or tantrums, just silence, like a punishment. Like if he ignored me hard enough, I'd crawl back and apologize. But I didn't. Instead, I watched the house go cold. The shared calendar wiped, the business account locked, the money we used to pay basic bills suddenly tied up. He wasn't just hurt. I realized he was retaliating, punishing me for taking what I had every right to. He started making these passive-aggressive moves, blocking me from meetings with clients, refusing to include me on email threads, forgetting to tell me when bills were due or where key paperwork was filed. At first I thought I was imagining it, but no, this wasn't neglect, it was strategy. A quiet dismantling of everything we built together, brick by brick, without saying a single word out loud. One morning, I woke up to find that the credit card I used for groceries was suddenly declined. He'd removed me as an authorized user. When I confronted him, he just shrugged and said, "You wanted independence, right?" It was in that moment I realized something painful. He didn't just see our marriage as broken, he saw it as a battlefield. And he was going to bleed me financially before letting me leave with anything that looked like dignity. The worst part, I was still in it, living under the same roof, still tied together legally, financially, structurally. And somehow I was the villain in his eyes, for trying to reclaim my half, for not staying quiet, for refusing to let the story stay his version. I wasn't broke, not yet, but emotionally I felt gutted, betrayed again, and this time not because of what he did in secret, but because of what he was willing to destroy in the open, just to keep me from standing up. And I knew then, if I didn't get out soon, really out, he wouldn't just take the money, he'd take my peace, my future, my voice, and I'd already spent too long living without those. He genuinely thinks he's the victim. That's what keeps hitting me over and over again. Not the money, not the yelling, not even the lies, but the complete lack of remorse. The way he talks about what I did transferring back my half is like I stole from him, like I betrayed him, as if he's the one who was wronged. And that's when I realized something chilling. Men like him don't think it's wrong, because they don't see you as equal, not really. To him, our marriage wasn't a partnership, it was a hierarchy. And he was always at the top, his decisions, his goals, his credit card, his business. My role, support, smile, don't question, don't access the bank account, don't ask about the payments, and definitely don't touch the money, even if it was half mine. When he bought baseball cards behind my back, he called it investing. When I got a haircut or paid for groceries, he called it wasteful. He controlled the narrative, the finances, the definition of acceptable. And every time I brought it up, I was starting drama, ruining the mood, too emotional. That's how financial abusers work. They don't need fists. They use silence, shifting goalposts, guilt. And because men like him think being a husband automatically makes them the head of the household, they believe any resistance from you is rebellion, not just disagreement, but betrayal. It's not about the money. It's about the audacity. How dare I try to be equal? He doesn't believe he owes me anything because in his mind, I owe him for staying, for loving him, for not walking away sooner. But here's the truth. Love without respect is manipulation. Control disguised as stability. And just because he signed checks with both our names doesn't mean he saw us as partners. He saw me as a dependent. That's why men like him never think they're wrong, because in their minds, they're just managing the family. Even if the family is crumbling under the weight of their ego, and until they see you as a person with power choice voice, they'll keep calling your freedom theft. But I'm done shrinking to fit inside someone else's version of fairness. If fighting for my half makes me a villain in his story, so be it. At least now I know the truth. $80,000 isn't just money, it's the apology I never got. The respect I had to take back by force. It's every silenced instinct, every gaslit moment, every late night I stayed up wondering if I was being too much or too difficult for simply asking where the money went. Because for years, I didn't feel entitled to ask. He made sure of that. He'd say things like, "You wouldn't understand finance," or "I handle the numbers, just trust me." And I wanted to. I wanted to believe we were in this together, that this was what love looked like, one person leading the other, supporting. But supporting turned into sacrificing, into dimming myself, into signing joint papers without joint decisions. So when I started moving $1,000 here, $2,000 there, it wasn't about revenge, it was survival. It was me slowly reclaiming what I was always told didn't belong to me. That $80,000, it's proof I saw through him, that I woke up, that I decided I mattered not just as his wife or his shadow, but as a woman who poured everything into someone who saw her as a piggy bank with no opinion. He can mock me, threaten me, call me a rat. But the truth is, rats know how to escape sinking ships, and he's the one who drilled the holes. Every dollar I moved was a sentence in a language he never learned: boundaries. Every transaction was a whisper to myself. You are not crazy. You are not greedy. You are not wrong. People say money can't buy peace, but it can buy distance, options, a lawyer, therapy, a lease in my name alone, and more than anything, it's a symbol that after years of being told I was lucky to be in his world, I finally started building my own. He didn't lose money, he lost control. And me, I didn't gain a fortune, I gained clarity. I'm not just moving money, I'm moving on. Take your half and your power. Because sometimes the only way to be heard in a house built on silence is to walk out with your share of the bricks. I used to think love meant sacrifice, that if I gave enough, softened enough, forgave enough, he'd see me, really see me. But the truth is, some people only notice what they've lost when they can't control it anymore. That $80,000 isn't just a number, it's every birthday I went without, every no I whispered when I wanted to scream. It's proof that you can reclaim what someone else tried to erase: your voice, your worth, your gut instinct. If you're listening to this and wondering if your version of normal is actually quiet abuse, ask yourself one thing. Do I feel safe speaking the truth in my own home? If the answer is no, then start building your exit dollar by dollar, boundary by boundary. I didn't wait for him to change. I changed the rules. I stopped asking for fairness and started taking it. Quietly, intentionally, with zero apologies. You're not a rat. You're not vindictive. You're someone who's finally protecting themselves the way no one else ever did. And if this story spoke to you, even just a little, stick around. Because the next story, it's about what happens when a woman walks away with less fear and more power. Subscribe for more true stories of quiet strength, loud choices, and the kind of endings you get to write.